So I think an aspect of bold leadership is just simply to be you. I'm going to tell you one thing I think that I know that I do, and I get great feedback from my teams, and I get sometimes negative feedback from my bosses. But I'm going to go with the team. I'm going to go with the team. I think an aspect of bold marketing leadership, and actually you could take the word marketing out of that and just of bold leadership, is just to be you. I've seen so many wonderfully talented people throughout my career who they get to a certain stage and they're at a certain level. In the IBM company, we used to have this theory back in Europe many years ago that it was when people got to the band C executive level that you somehow took a special class that removed your personality and changed you into some kind of automaton, you know? Look, you're laughing because you all recognize this to be true. You all know people like this. They were a really good person. They were good. They were engaged. They engaged the people. They were authentic, la, la, la. And then they got one promotion too many and suddenly they turned into a different kind of a human being because it wasn't okay to be them anymore. They couldn't crack a joke anymore. That wasn't right. They had to be very serious, you know. They didn't go to the pub for a drink after work or, you know, they didn't sit with you all at lunch in the canteen or restaurant. It's horrible. That's horrible. Who wants to do that? Who wants to be that person? So I think an aspect of bold leadership is just simply to be you. You know, if you is good enough to get that promotion, to get that job because of your talent, your skills, then that's great. If you change who you are, you're now a different person. You may not be worthy of that job, and you certainly won't be won't add the value to serve your team. So that I think that's an aspect of bold leadership. Now it's easy for me to say that, and it's quite lazy for me to say that because it is so much easier being me than for me to try and be anything else. But I do hear it back from my teams, all of my colleagues, all the time. You know, people I've never met before. Oh, tell me, oh, you're so authentic. It's like, what else is there? I don't know how to be anything else. So it's not clever of me. It's just who I am. But I do strongly advocate for people to be themselves because being anything other than yourself takes energy and effort. And I was chatting with one of my colleagues yesterday. I said, of course there's filtering. I do have to filter. You know, if I'm in a meeting with Ginny Rometty, I am definitely filtering myself. But I'm never not who I am, if that makes sense. Double negative, very good. It's really interesting. I want to come on to this in a second to talk about diversity and inclusion, but I just scribbled this down last night because I love this quote so much and it's got a really important word in it. So in 1953, our then CEO, Thomas Watson, published a memo to all managers in the IBM company. It's known as policy letter number 4. If you're really interested, you can Google it and you'll get a facsimile copy. And the middle paragraph of it says this: it is the policy of this organization to hire people who have the personality, that's the word, personality, talent, and background necessary to fill a given job, regardless of race, color, or creed. Okay. Obviously, it's a signpost for diversity and inclusion because of those last words. But personality, who in 1953 thought about hiring for a tech company based on personality? Well, Thomas Watson did. If it's good enough for him, it's certainly good enough for me. So I actually think it's really important, and the personality and the style and the aptitude and the attitude and the way people do what they do, they are all so important. And so I really think that bold leadership means putting yourself out there a bit, maybe making yourself a bit vulnerable by being yourself, because you know we are all imperfect as human beings, and allowing people to see your imperfections. Yeah, maybe that makes you feel a bit vulnerable. Maybe it's a little uncomfortable sometimes, but it's incredibly empowering to people who look to you and think you're a role model as a leader, and think, oh, how fantastic, that person has that job, you know, and that life, and they're not perfect. That means me, who is imperfect, can also have those things if I work hard and blah, blah, blah. I thought I'd give you an example, something I've done that I thought was bold. In fact, most people said crazy, but I'll switch crazy for bold anytime. So back in 2009, I was the newly appointed CMO for IBM UK and Ireland. And pretty much like week 3, somebody came to me and said, the Prince of Wales is, and by the way, I should say I'm a Republican with a small r, so the very fact somebody came to me with a sentence that had the Prince of Wales in it was making me uncomfortable already. The Prince of Wales is putting together this new charitable thing. It's all about sustainability, and they're going to call it START, because one of the problems they identify with sustainability issues is the general public are fed up of being told to stop doing things, and maybe it's time we ask them to start doing the things that will actually help. Okay, so nice little play. Okay, we like this. So far, so good. Good marketing stuff. We like this. Okay, so why is this? Well, they want to have a B2B element. They want to engage business, and they want to know if IBM would be interested in helping them convene business around this topic. Now, IBM has a long history of environmental credentials. In fact, our 1971 environmental policy was actually used by the US government as the basis of the EPA's policy for business some years later. So lots of long-standing credentials around that in this space. Anyway, so my predecessor had this put on his desk and said he would not touch it with a barge pole. I have high regard for my predecessor. He was a really brilliant guy, really smart guy, really nice guy. So I'm slightly nervous, but I'm into bold. I'm new in role. What could possibly go wrong? So we're going to have the meeting. Okay, so what they're going to do is they're going to run a 10-day festival of sustainability for the general public. And they're going to run it in these 3 gardens of these 3 palaces in London, quite close to Buckingham Palace. One of the gardens is the garden, Prince Charles's garden, and then the gardens are the 2 buildings in the 2 next door buildings. And one of those next door buildings is called Lancaster House. It's a former palace. If you ever happen to go there, you'll recognize it because they always film the apparent Buckingham Palace interiors for movies in Lancaster House. So ever since then, by the way, I go to movies like the King's Speech or whatever, or you see Netflix, The Queen, and I kind of go, ooh, I recognize that room. Anyway, so we go to the meeting, and so it's 10 days. So, okay, so we thought we were going to do business, and so we'd like you to kind of be the lead sponsor, partner for this, and, you can pick, which day or days you like. Okay, so we have the meeting and go away, and I go and I sit down with our new CEO for the UK, who was new in role about 3 weeks after I was. And hey, Stephen, so lots of great things going on, but we're going to do a 10-day event. And he's like, 10-day event? So I tell him a bit more. And he says, well, Caroline, have we ever done a 10-day event before? I said, no, but don't let that worry you. It'll be fine. Why 10 days? And I said, well, it's really quite simple. If they're offering 10 days for business engagement in this palace, Lancaster House, and the thing is, if we only take a few days, 2 or 3 days, kind of a normal long event, or even just one day, well, who's going to take the rest? And they might do it better than us. They certainly might spend more money, thinking of some of my competitors. So I just figured we'd take the whole 10, because then that stops anybody else getting a look in, and then we'll just have to do 10 totally fabulous days. So anyway, everybody's telling me, Caroline, you are completely crazy. One of my global colleagues said, over my dead body, will you spend any of my budget on this project? So like, okay. 120 people worked very hard for about 8 or 9 months to make this happen. Oh, then the Pope decided to come to London, and our Foreign and Commonwealth Office gave him the use of Lancaster House on what would have been day 10. So we had to quickly scramble about 4 months out. We weren't having a day 10 anymore. Okay, well, that's made things simple. Okay, so now we've got a 9-day event. And it wasn't 9 days. We weren't mad enough to ask people to come for 9 days. We asked a different audience to come on each of the 9 days. And each day fed through to the next one, looking at sustainability issues from a business perspective through different lenses. So, in the finance industry, in banking, etc. In the energy industry, in local government, and thinking about cities and all of that. Anyway, different things across the whole of the 9 days. The thing was, the thing was, we didn't really have the budget for it. I didn't have budget that would really make this happen the way it needed to happen. So I had to go and persuade lots of people to give me money to do it. I was short of budget about, I guess, about 4 months out. I'd run out of money to open purchase orders. Okay, no money left in the Caroline Bank. So I had to go to our CFO and get a loan. And he was a mean bear of a man. And I thought, this is going to be terrible. But you know, it was amazing. We had got so much support and engagement from the entire leadership team of IBM UK and Ireland at that point that he said, Caroline, as long as you have the budget by the end of the year, this was going to be September, so I had till December to pay him back, I will underwrite all your POs. Okay, game on. Anyway, so, you know, it was a crazy idea to try and put a 10, then 9-day event on. It was amazing getting people. Well, I had a senior executive in the business outside of marketing sponsor each day and made it their responsibility. We took a radical approach to audience generation. I said to my teams, okay, so we only want 100 people for each day. You know, we want to keep this kind of select. So you work out who are the 100 named individuals in the UK who if they were there, you would count that as success. Start with them. Get that list, then think about who the next 100 and the next 100, but start with the 100 you really want and go all guns blazing to get them to come. Don't just mail 2,000 people thinking, you know, oh, if I mail 2,000, we'll get 100. Actually get the 100 you really, really want, because these kind of selective, it's like you all being here today. The value to you is the other people who are here. If you sat in here and, you know, everybody else was not, you didn't feel they were a peer, you didn't feel they were relevant to you, you would think you were in the wrong place, you know? And so very radical, different approach, very manual approach. Anyway, we did lots of really smart things. Everybody worked incredibly hard. All I can tell you is it completely paid off. We had 9 incredible days. We had amazing people, because if you're doing a project with the Prince of Wales, you get all sorts of amazing people who'll come and do stuff at your event for free. People you normally spend $20,000 to hire for the day suddenly will do it because it's a favour to the Prince of Wales. Who knew? So you had all these extraordinary benefits, of course, all the astonishing downsides, including Prince Charles coming to speak on one of the days and calling us BT, which didn't go down particularly well. And so, moment of great wisdom, live streamed the whole thing, 12-minute delay. Brilliant idea. Used to have a friend who was a sound engineer on a British TV program, Question Time, that used to be broadcast live, and they had to introduce a delay because they were broadcasting live, and then somebody used profanity, and there was all hell broke loose, and questions were asked in Parliament and all that nonsense. So 12-minute delay. So we were able to scrub out the BT comment before it went live. That was good. Nevertheless, though, despite all of that, absolutely amazingly impactful. And the thing that that we were left with in terms of an outcome, we actually built an enormous business pipeline on the back of that. Not specifically because we'd had that conversation on the day, but because of the relationships that our teams built. We had relationships with CEOs who had never bothered talking to us. You know, they thought, I don't need to talk to IBM, you talk to my CIO. We suddenly had relationships with CEOs that we'd never had before. So it was totally worth all the pain. But I had so many people, you know, ahead of time telling me I was mad, this was crazy, it would never work. Don't spend my money on it. By the way, the man who told me not to spend his money, I did, I just didn't tell him. Because that's what we do in the countries as marketers, isn't it? Never mind HQ people, we'll just do it. But it paid so many dividends. And people afterwards kept telling me that was an incredible risk you took. One of my leadership peers in the UK, on the UK board at the time, that was an incredible risk you took, Caroline. I was like, really? It didn't feel like a massive risk. It felt like it was a bit out there, unusual, different, but it didn't really feel like it was a massive risk. It certainly wasn't a business risk. Maybe it was a slight career risk, but I don't know. Life's for living, isn't it? If it had all gone terribly wrong, and would there have been reputational damage? I suppose there was a bit of nervousness from my global colleagues that we were seriously sticking our heads above the parapet, and I did get a bit of grief from, the likes of Greenpeace, who really don't. Their view was economic growth is bad for the planet, and my view was economic growth done sustainably can be perfectly good for the planet. And, so we were never going to agree. But apart from that, we actually did, and then we had a leading environmentalist, Jonathan Porritt, who attended and spoke on the same day that our global environmental leader was in the room. And he basically lectured the business people in the room and told them off for all the bad things that they were doing environmentally. But I was like, this comes back to authenticity. You can't invite Jonathan Porritt to an environmental event with business leaders and expect that he's not going to do that. Of course he's going to do that. But actually it just made the whole thing seem real rather than lots of puff and marketing hype, So I would say that was my, where did it go? Oh, it's behind me, thank you. So I'm old and I have no memory anymore. I just wanted to share that thought with you in terms of bold marketing leadership. And, sometimes you do something that's really big and out there, and sometimes you do something that's really quite subtle, that's a bold change, but isn't going to be necessarily hugely visible. But it's just I think it just, gosh, life would be so dull, wouldn't it, if you just kind of did everything the same and didn't take these little risks. And it sort of makes me laugh because I work in IBM, so we're all about data. And I work in IBM marketing, we're all about data-driven marketing. But it doesn't mean there isn't a place for instinct, and experience. And you use the two together, of course. But instinctively, I felt this would be an amazing thing to do. Oh, by the way, it had one other little side benefit. Our marketing team in the UK at the time, I think we'd fairly recently been through some downsizing, and so we'd had a number of layoffs and all of that. So everybody was feeling a little bit, The thing that was amazing was how proud they all felt of themselves as a result of doing this incredibly high-profile, high-impact project, and how it changed the perception of our business colleagues. Because in the B2B world, sales teams think that marketing is another planet and one best not visited too often. And it really changed their attitude, because here was marketing doing something nobody had asked them to do. They just went and did it, really, went there, did it big, really got the attention of their clients. And so it really changed that dynamic as well in the business. That was interesting.